go again. Welcome back. This is part 3 of 4 Hypnotic Stages of Competence. I'm Hakeem Alexander, hosting this hypno-athletics presentation, Exercising Your Mind. So part 3, 4 Hypnotic Stages of Competence. So in part 1, we talked about the first stage, which is unconscious incompetence. Part 2, we talked about the second stage, which is conscious incompetence. And now we're going to give some strategies and some behavioral suggestions, things that you can do so that you're in conscious competence. So now we're going to be thinking about what you can do to improve, to increase your chances of succeeding, to improve your chances of achieving your goals and getting the things that you want. So, a quick recap. Unconscious incompetence. At that point in time, you didn't know that your subconscious mind was running programs for its survival, for your benefit, and in doing that, it wasn't allowing any new information like your desires, your goals, and your plans that you want consciously to be implanted and embedded to help run your behavior to achieve your goals, because it perceived those new ideas as threats to your survival. And that's the job of the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, to preserve the survival of you. And so all those new ideas, those plans and goals that you have, they're seen as a threat, and so they are not allowed to get past the critical filter, the reticular activating system. It's not allowed to change your behavior. But you weren't aware of this, so you were unconscious of what was causing your incompetence. But now you know. And you also know that a big part of this is that what's happening in order to keep you within a familiarity zone are negative emotions that are basically types of fear that scare you into staying below the top of your threshold, right within your familiarity zone, the top of it, and staying above the bottom of it, staying within those boundaries. So we have the subconscious mind, and it uses emotions to keep you in check, to control your behavior. So that even though you want something and you can see it in great detail, unconsciously, you're incompetent because survival is your biggest priority. And so your behavior is going to do whatever it can to help you to survive. And if it feels like anything new is going to threaten that survival, then your behavior is not going to be in alignment with your goals. So now that we know that, what can we do? What actions can we actually take? And that's what's really important here now in what I'm going to share about the emotional incubation method, is that there are behavioral components to it, things that you actually have to do, as well as things that you're thinking about, which is very important for those two things to be working together, because that's what's happening before anyway. That's what happens in unconscious incompetence, is that your emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors are all acting in a coordinated way to get you the results that you're getting, which remain in your familiarity zone, which are not compatible with what you actually want. So the emotional incubation method has 3 parts, and that's sampling, anchoring, and dissociation. So the first part is sampling. This is something that you actually have to take action on doing. And what sampling means is that you are searching your memories for a very exciting, fulfilling achievement in your life, a memory of it, a time when you got something that you wanted, and you're thinking about how good you felt, and you're incubating and cultivating that feeling. You're growing it because you're going to be using this later on with your new goals in mind. The idea is to be able to match at will any current event in time with the emotions and feelings and ideas and thoughts of winning and achievement and of success and confidence. So let's just say you were an actor and you landed a really big role 3 months ago. But in the interim, in the time in between that, you weren't getting the roles that you wanted, and you just keep on having disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And so then when you get a new script, and while you're rehearsing and your agent, your manager gives it to you, and you're running the lines with your friends, the prominent idea that's in your mind, the emotions that you're feeling, are usually those rejections that you got when you didn't get the part in between that last time that you were successful. So what your job to do is to focus back on that time when you were successful, not because you want to dwell on the past and not move forward, but because you want to be able to use those emotions and turn them and make them as if they're brand new right now. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. You can recreate the breathing patterns, the way that you were breathing when you heard the news, and also how exciting you felt while you were on set, the way that you were breathing, the way that you were moving, the tone of your voice, the things that you were saying. And you bring all those into memory and you keep repeating them over and over again. They're new, so that the memories become newer and stronger. And then you the second part of that, so that's sampling. That's what it means by sampling. You're finding those emotions and you're taking a sample of it and you're growing it bigger, like a scientist would a culture in a petri dish. They take like 1 or 2 cells and they make billions and trillions of them out of those few cells. And so that's what you're doing, you're growing it. Then the next stage is to anchor it. And anchoring has 2 purposes. It helps you to be able to recall those feelings at will whenever you want to. For example, when you get the script from your agent and your manager, and when you're reading lines with another actor or a friend, and then when you actually go to the audition, you use the anchor, which can be used as a word and or a physical action. So the word could be achievement, like success. You can say 2 words like nailed it or got the part. 3 words. And then you can tug on your ear, snap your fingers, touch your nose, take a deep breath in and breathe out a certain way, or blink your eyes in a certain way. There's several different physical anchors that you can use. And so when you do that with your current part and your current experience that you're having, it's to enable you to recall that specific emotion and feeling. Sort of just like how when you type in a certain thing in a search engine, if you type in the word success or the word wealth, you'll get returned things that have to do with success and wealth. If you type in poverty and failure, you'll get things having to do with poverty and failure. So you're doing the same thing here. The anchors are like key words that you type into a search engine in order to pull up a certain result. So, and you can use several different things. The second part of that is why we call it an anchor, is because also what happens is that when you're having a new experience, when you're doing the audition, when you're reading the sides, the parts, when you're running your lines, whenever you're doing something that's involved in this new part that you're attempting to get, you're dropping this emotion that you've cultivated and incubating. You're dropping anchor on it. You know, when you drop an anchor, like in a ship, the anchor keeps the ship in that place in the ocean, right? So that the ship doesn't move. It can stay relatively in the same place. So that's what you're doing. You want those emotions to be hovering around, to be floating around in that new experience that you're attempting to have. So you want that emotion to be there on the waters of your current experience. And what that does is it helps you to reassociate. It helps you to reassociate and get used to. You're desensitizing the old reaction. It's an unconscious reaction. Before, you were unconsciously reacting and anchoring feelings of fear and disappointment and failure to your current experiences because you've had previous experiences before. And so what we're doing is we're just overriding the same mechanism, and we're doing it consciously. And this is conscious competence, because you have to use your willpower, and you have to do it over and over again so that you can change the association or reassociate, change the sensitivity, so that you're no longer unconsciously reacting incompetently, but then eventually, or for the time being, you're consciously responding with competence. And the more you do that over and over again, you change the pathways, and so that eventually you move into subconscious competence, which is the next stage. Now, there's a lot more practical things that you can do that are outside of like purely psychological concepts and just using these type of anchors. There's other ways you can anchor. For example, if you're around like a lot of negative people or fearful people who are always talking and discussing things like that, or if you watch TV shows or listen to podcasts or radio shows or read books and magazines where the ideas are predominantly like negative and about failure and things like that, you need to change that. It's very easy to replace. You know, it's been said that we tend to take on the characteristics of the 5 to 7 people we spend most of our time with. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean people that we physically spend our time with. They could be our favorite actors, musicians, and characters in books that we're constantly visiting and that we identify with. So we have to change the people we're associating with and identifying with, even though they may be people we've never met and that we interact with from a distance, like even on YouTube videos, or people we might follow on Instagram, or other things like that. It's not to say that you have to dump these people and throw them in the trash, but you have to you actually have to change the amount of attention that you're giving to them. You have to change the amount of attention that you pay to them. Your attention is a form of currency, and you get what you pay for. What you pay attention to is what will be delivered to you. And so one of the things you can do are starting to read more motivational books, listen to inspirational or informative and educational podcasts like this one that teach you how to change the associations that you might have. Watch movies that are inspiring, so on and so forth, and overwrite the negative programming that you have. So now, that's what conscious competence is all about, is that you're consciously putting yourself in positions that remind you to bring up the feelings of success, of achievement, of accomplishment, and confidence. In part 4, we're going to talk about unconscious competence, and that might be the last one of this series. I'm Hakeem Alexander, Hypnoathletics, exercising your mind. Stay tuned.